Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window of his ship, watching the huge space station slowly turn in front of them. The station was called Peace Harbor, and it was bigger than most cities back on Earth. Ships from 12 different alien races came and went like busy insects around a hive. Jake had been out here for 3 years now, but he still felt amazed every time he saw so many different kinds of beings working together. The human race had only joined this galactic community 50 years ago. Before that, humans thought they were alone in the universe. Then the aliens found Earth and everything changed. The aliens had rules, and the most important rule was simple. No one could kill off an entire species. Ever. It was called the Sacred Law, and every alien race followed it without question. Jake walked back to his captain's chair. His ship, the Liberty, was one of the newer human vessels. It was not as fancy as the alien ships, but it was reliable and strong. The crew was small but good. Amy Rodriguez was his second in command, and she was one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. Dr. Peter Chen took care of the science stuff, and Lisa Parker handled all their communications with other ships and planets. Today should have been a normal day. They were supposed to pick up supplies from Peace Harbor and then head out to check on some human colonies, but something felt wrong. Jake could see it in the way his crew moved around the ship. Everyone seemed nervous. Amy walked up to him with a worried look on her face. "Captain, we have a problem. We lost contact with New Eden Colony 3 days ago. Yesterday, Centauri Prime went silent too. Now Terra Nova is not answering our calls either." Jake felt his stomach drop. New Eden was home to over 2 million humans. Centauri Prime had 500,000 people. Terra Nova was even bigger, with nearly 3 million colonists. These were not small outposts that might have equipment problems. These were major human settlements with backup communication systems. "Maybe it's just technical problems," Jake said, but he did not really believe it. "Solar storms or equipment failures," Amy shook her head. "I thought so too, but I checked the space weather reports. Nothing unusual in any of those systems. And for all 3 colonies to go dark at almost the same time, that's not a coincidence." Dr. Chen came running onto the bridge. He was usually calm and quiet, but now he looked scared. His hands were shaking as he held his tablet computer. "Captain, you need to see this. We picked up some debris from the New Eden system. I ran tests on it." Jake took the tablet and looked at the data. He was not a scientist, but he could see that Chen had found traces of some kind of weapon. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "These are burn marks from Krathan disintegrator weapons," Chen said. "I'm absolutely sure. I've studied their technology for years. But that's not the worst part." Chen's voice got quieter. "I also found traces of a biological weapon, something designed to target human DNA specifically." The bridge got very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at Chen. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying the Krethans attacked our colonies, and they used a weapon that was made to kill only humans. Captain, I don't think anyone survived." Lisa Parker looked up from her communication station. Her face was pale and her eyes were red. "Sir, I've been trying to contact other human colonies. I've reached 12 of them so far." She paused and took a deep breath. 17 colonies are completely silent. That's over 4 billion people. Jake sat down hard in his captain's chair. 4 billion people. Men, women, children, babies, all gone. The Krethans were supposed to be their allies. They had signed the same treaties, followed the same laws. The sacred law said that no species could try to wipe out another species. It was the one rule that everyone agreed on. The foundation of galactic peace. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Jake asked Chen. "There's no chance you made a mistake?" Chen shook his head. "I ran the tests 5 times. The molecular signatures don't lie. This was a coordinated attack using Krathan weapons and a bioweapon designed specifically to kill humans. They didn't just attack our colonies, Captain. They tried to commit genocide." Amy was already working at her station. "I'm sending a priority message to Earth Command. They need to know about this immediately." Jake stood up and walked back to the window. Outside, he could see a Krathan ship docking with the space station. It looked like any other day, with aliens going about their business as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The Krethans had broken the sacred law. They had tried to wipe out humanity. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I'm getting reports from other human ships. The attacks weren't random. They hit our biggest colonies first, then the smaller ones. It was planned. They wanted to kill as many humans as possible. Jake thought about his sister Sarah, who lived on Terra Nova with her husband and 2 young children. He thought about his friend Danny, who had moved to New Eden to start a farm. He thought about all the people he had met over the years, good people who just wanted to build new lives on distant worlds. Dr. Chen was still studying his data. Captain, the bioweapon is sophisticated. It would have taken years to develop. This wasn't a sudden decision. The Crethans have been planning this for a long time. But why? Amy asked. We've never done anything to threaten them. We've followed all the rules, stayed in our assigned territories. Maybe that's the problem, Jake said slowly. Maybe they see us as a threat just because we exist. We're new. We're different, and we're growing fast. Lisa's communication board lit up with incoming messages. Sir, I'm getting calls from human ships all over the sector. Everyone wants to know what's happening. What should I tell them? Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, loyal and brave. They deserved to know the truth just like every other human in the galaxy. Tell them the truth. Tell them that the Crethans have broken the sacred law. Tell them that our colonies have been attacked and our people are dead. He paused and looked back out at the alien ships around the space station. And tell them that we're going to find out what the other aliens plan to do about it. Admiral Helen Burke had seen many things in her 30 years of military service, but she had never seen anything like the emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. The great chamber on Harmony Station was huge, with seats for representatives from all 12 species that made up the galactic community. Usually these meetings were boring affairs about trade agreements and shipping routes. Today was different. Commander Roy Patterson stood in the center of the chamber representing humanity. He was a good man, calm under pressure, but Helen could see the anger in his eyes. Next to him stood Ambassador Elena Foster, Earth's top diplomat. She had spent years building relationships with the other species, always working for peace and cooperation. The evidence was clear and horrible. Holographic displays showed the destroyed human colonies. Pictures of empty cities, burned farmlands, and silent communication centers filled the air above the chamber. Dr. Chen's scientific data proved that Crethan weapons had been used. The biological weapon that killed only humans was the final proof. The Crethans have violated the sacred law, Patterson said. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the pain underneath. They have committed genocide against humanity. 4 billion people are dead. We demand justice according to the laws we all agreed to follow. Helen watched the alien representatives as Patterson spoke. Some looked shocked. Others seemed uncomfortable. A few appeared to be whispering among themselves as if they were planning something. Then War Master Thakzul of the Crethans stood up. He was a massive creature, nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin like dark metal. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The humans speak of laws while they spread across space like a disease, Thakzul said. They breed without control and take resources that belong to others. We simply removed a threat to galactic stability. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Helen could not believe what she was hearing. Thakzul was actually admitting to genocide, and he was acting like it was a good thing. Ambassador Foster stepped forward. You confess to killing 4 billion innocent people? You admit to breaking the sacred law that has kept peace for 3 centuries? Thakzul spread his forearms wide. Confession suggests shame. We feel none. Your species was growing too fast, taking too much. We corrected the problem. Helen felt sick. She had fought in wars before, but those were battles between soldiers. This was different. This was the deliberate murder of civilians, including children and babies. And the Crethans were proud of it. But the worst moment came when Chancellor Viss of the Vailari spoke. The Vailari were the oldest species in the galactic community. They had written the sacred law. If anyone should defend it, it should be them. While the Crethans used extreme methods, Viss said in his thin, whispery voice, the Council must consider whether human expansion truly posed a threat. Perhaps the humans were growing too quickly. We vote to give the Crethans an official warning and suggest that humans limit their future colonies. Helen stared at Viss in disbelief. A warning? 4 billion people were dead, and they wanted to give the killers a warning? Patterson's face went white with rage. A warning? They murdered 4 billion of our people, and you want to give them a warning? High Merchant Zilk of the Zilani nodded his large bulb-shaped head. War is bad for business. Trade routes must remain open. This incident should be forgotten quickly. One by one, the other species voted. The Torathi were afraid of Crethan military power. The Nixari had old grudges against newcomer species. The Helios worried about their own territories. Each species found reasons to look the other way. Helen watched in horror as the vote proceeded. The Krathens had allies, species that benefited from their military protection or their trade deals. Other species were simply too scared to oppose them. Some seemed to think that humans deserved what happened to them. When the final vote was counted, it was 10 species against humanity, with only one abstention. The Galactic Council had decided that genocide was acceptable if it was committed against humans. Ambassador Foster spoke into the stunned silence. "You have all signed the sacred law. You swore to uphold it. How can you ignore it now?" Chancellor Vyse answered without any emotion. "Laws must be interpreted according to circumstances. The human expansion was unprecedented. Perhaps some adjustment was necessary." Helen felt something break inside her. For 50 years, humanity had worked to join this galactic community. They had followed every rule, respected every custom, and tried to be good neighbors. They had believed that the other species shared their values of justice and fairness. Now she knew the truth. The other species did not see humans as equals. They saw them as a problem to be managed or eliminated. The sacred law only applied when it was convenient. Commander Patterson gathered his papers and prepared to leave. "We came here seeking justice for our dead. Instead, we found that justice is a luxury only some species can afford." As the human delegation walked out of the chamber, Helen heard War Master Thakzul laughing behind them. It was a sound like metal scraping against stone, and it followed them all the way to their ship. On the flight back to Earth, Helen sat with Patterson and Foster in the ship's conference room. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Foster broke the silence. 50 years of diplomacy, and it meant nothing, she said. "They never saw us as equals. We were always just the new species that they tolerated." Patterson nodded grimly. "The question now is what we do about it. The Council has made it clear that they won't protect us. If the Krathens attack again, we're on our own." Helen looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Somewhere out there, the Krathens were probably planning their next attack. They had gotten away with genocide once. They would likely try again. "Maybe being on our own isn't such a bad thing," Helen said quietly. "Maybe it's time humans stopped asking for permission and started making our own rules." Foster looked at her with surprise. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that the Galactic Council just taught us an important lesson. In this galaxy, justice belongs to those strong enough to enforce it. The Krathens think they're strong enough to commit genocide and get away with it." Helen turned away from the window and looked at her companions. "I think it's time we showed them what strength really looks like." Captain Jake Morrison received the encrypted message while his ship drifted in empty space between star systems. The message was short and came directly from Admiral Burke herself. Jake read it 3 times before he fully understood what it meant. "The Galactic Council has failed us," the message said. "Humanity stands alone. Operation Reckoning is now authorized. Make them remember why they should have respected us." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Amy Rodriguez was checking navigation data. Dr. Chen was running scans of nearby space. Lisa Parker was monitoring communications. They all looked tired and angry. Everyone had lost someone in the Krathen attacks. "Amy, set course for the Kepler station," Jake said. "We have new orders." While the Liberty flew toward its destination, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of human ships across the galaxy. The message was the same everywhere. The time for asking nicely was over. Agent Carol Stevens had been working undercover at a Krathen shipyard for 2 years. She was supposed to be gathering information about their ship designs for human engineers to study. Now she had a very different job. Late at night, when the alien workers had gone home, Carol moved through the construction areas like a ghost. She planted small devices that looked like normal repair tools. The Krathens would never notice them until it was too late. On the diplomatic station at Proxima Central, Operative Gary Lee continued his work as a translator for trade meetings. But now he was also copying security codes, mapping defense systems, and learning the schedules of important alien officials. The Velari trusted him because humans were supposed to be peaceful and harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Back on Earth, Dr. Susan Walsh worked in a secret laboratory buried deep underground. She was one of the smartest scientists humanity had ever produced, and now she was studying the same biological weapon that had killed 4 billion humans. But Susan was not trying to defend against it. She was learning how to make it better. The Crethans thought they were clever, she told her research team. They made a weapon that only killed humans. But they forgot something important. Humans are very good at learning from their enemies. Susan's new weapons were different from the Crethan bioweapon. They were not designed to kill entire populations. Instead, they targeted specific individuals based on their genetic patterns. A weapon that could kill one particular Crethan general while leaving everyone else unharmed. Captain Morrison arrived at Kepler Station to find his ship being upgraded with new equipment. Human engineers worked day and night to install quantum disruptors that could cut through any known armor. The ship's computers were upgraded with advanced targeting systems. Most importantly, each ship received a cargo bay full of what Dr. Walsh called justice packages. The work was done in secret. To the aliens, it looked like humans were just maintaining their ships. They had no idea that the human fleet was being transformed into something much more dangerous. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez coordinated with similar cells throughout human space. The plan was simple but effective. They would not attack civilians like the Crethans had done. Humans still believed in honor, even when their enemies did not. But military targets were fair game. Command centers, weapons factories, and the leaders who had ordered genocide. All across human space, ordinary people were volunteering for the war effort. Farmers became intelligence agents. Teachers learned to build explosives. Children helped decode alien communications. Everyone wanted to do something to avenge their dead friends and family. The Terran Defense Council, which had once been just an advisory group, now became humanity's secret government. They operated from hidden bases and moved constantly to avoid detection. Their message was broadcast on every human communication channel. You broke the only law that mattered. You ignored our pain when we asked for justice. Now you will learn why Earth's children survived when stronger species went extinct. Jake met with other human ship captains at a secret location in the asteroid belt. There were 30 ships present, all equipped with the new weapons. The captains looked grim but determined. Remember, Jake told them, we are not murderers like the Crethans. We do not target civilians, but anyone who participated in the genocide, anyone who voted to ignore it, anyone who profits from it, they are legitimate targets. Captain Betty Morgan of the ship Defiance raised her hand. What about the species that abstained from the vote? The ones who didn't actively support the Crethans? They had a choice, Jake replied. They could have stood up for what was right. They chose to stay silent while 4 billion humans died. Silence in the face of genocide makes you complicit. The human spy networks that had taken decades to build were now activated for war. Every major alien government found that their most trusted human employees had suddenly become very interested in security. Procedures and emergency protocols, Dr. Chen worked with other scientists to analyze alien technology. They studied Crethan shields, Velari sensors, and Zilani communication systems. Every weakness was cataloged and shared with human military units. Back on Earth, Admiral Burke addressed the planet's population via global broadcast. For 50 years we tried to be good neighbors. We followed their rules, respected their customs, and hoped they would accept us as equals. Instead, they showed us that they see us as inferior beings whose lives have no value. Burke paused and looked directly into the camera. They were wrong. Human life has value. Human children have the right to grow up. Human colonies have the right to exist. Since the galaxy will not protect these rights, we will do it ourselves. The Admiral's message was intercepted by alien intelligence services, but they did not understand what it really meant. To them, it sounded like empty human emotions. They had no idea that humanity was about to demonstrate exactly what those emotions could accomplish when backed by advanced technology and cold determination. Agent Stevens finished her work at the Crethan shipyard. 12 new warships were under construction, vessels that would have been used to attack more human colonies. But now those ships would never leave the dock. The devices she had planted would activate in exactly 72 hours. Operative Lee uploaded the final batch of stolen Velari security codes to the Human Intelligence Network. Every defense system, every communication relay, every government building was now vulnerable to human attack. Dr. Walsh loaded the first batch of justice packages onto transport ships. Each package contained a biological weapon targeted at a specific individual who had participated in or supported the genocide. Justice would be personal and precise. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to accept that evil should go unpunished. The Crethans had broken the sacred law and gotten away with it. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had left witnesses alive. The war began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time on a Tuesday. Across Crethan space, communication relays simply vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Military commanders trying to coordinate their forces found themselves talking to empty space. The great shipyards that built Crethan warships discovered that their orbital factories had developed mysterious holes that consumed metal and energy like hungry mouths. Captain Jake Morrison led Strike Group Alpha toward Vorza Station, the main military headquarters of the Crethan Empire. His ship, the Liberty, had been transformed from a simple patrol vessel into something much more dangerous. The quantum disruptors hummed with barely contained energy. The adaptive armor made his ship nearly invisible to Crethan sensors. "Enemy station in sight," reported Amy Rodriguez from her position at the tactical station. 12 Crethan warships defending. "They don't seem to know we're here yet." Jake studied the display screen. Vorza Station was massive, easily 10 times the size of any human space station. It controlled Crethan military operations across 3 star systems. Taking it out would cripple their ability to coordinate attacks. "Remember, our target is the military command center," Jake told his crew. "Avoid the civilian sections. We're not like them." The human ships moved through space like ghosts. The adaptive armor technology bent light around them, making them nearly impossible to detect. When the Crethans finally noticed the attack, it was already too late. The quantum disruptors were unlike any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. They did not simply destroy matter. They made it cease to exist entirely. Sections of Crethan warships simply vanished, leaving clean holes where armor and weapons had been moments before. "Direct hit on the command center," Amy reported. "The entire military leadership of this sector just disappeared." At the same time, Agent Carol Stevens watched from a safe distance as the Crethan shipyard where she had worked for 2 years erupted in a series of explosions. The devices she had planted had activated perfectly. 12 new warships that would have terrorized human colonies were now twisted metal floating in space. But the real shock came when Dr. Walsh's biological weapons were deployed. These were not the crude instruments of genocide that the Crethans had used. They were precise tools of justice, designed to target only those who had participated in the attacks on human colonies. General Vracath of the Crethan Third Fleet was in his private quarters when he felt the first symptoms. A burning sensation in his chest, difficulty breathing. His personal doctor could not explain what was happening. Vracath's DNA was slowly breaking down, cell by cell. He had just enough time to understand that this was revenge for the humans he had helped to kill. Across Crethan space, similar scenes played out. Every military commander who had participated in the genocide found themselves dying slowly and painfully. The weapons were designed to give them time to think about what they had done before the end came. The eye. Other species of the galactic community watched in horror as humanity systematically dismantled Crethan military power. Ambassador Elena Foster transmitted a message to the Galactic Council. "This is what happens when you abandon justice. We offered you law and order. You chose chaos and murder. Now you have war." High Merchant Zilk of the Zilani sent desperate messages to Earth begging for the attacks to stop. "Your actions are destroying trade routes across the galaxy. The economic damage will take decades to repair." Admiral Burke's response was broadcast on all frequencies. "You should have thought about that before you decided that human lives were worthless," Operative Gary Lee provided. Intelligence that allowed human forces to predict and counter every attempt by other alien species to intervene in the conflict. The Vailari tried to send a diplomatic mission to negotiate peace. Lee ensured that the mission was intercepted and turned away before it could reach human space. The systematic destruction of Crethan military capability continued for 6 months. Human strike teams hit supply depots, communication centers, and training facilities. The Crethans found themselves unable to respond effectively because they could not coordinate their forces or replace their losses. Captain Morrison's ship participated in the assault on Creth Prime, the Crethan homeworld, but the humans did not target civilian areas. Instead, they focused on the government buildings where the decisions about genocide had been made. "Target locked on the Supreme Command building," Amy reported. "Quantum disruptors ready." Fire, Jake ordered. The building where War Master Thakzul had planned the extermination of 4 billion humans simply ceased to exist. In its place was a perfectly spherical hole that went down through 50 levels of underground bunkers. The psychological effect was devastating. The Crethans had thought they were the strongest military force in the galaxy. Now they discovered that their weapons could barely damage human ships, while human weapons could make entire buildings disappear. But humanity's most effective weapon was not technology. It was the fear that spread through alien governments as they realized that humans had not forgotten or forgiven. Species that had voted to ignore the genocide found themselves wondering if they would be next. Dr. Chen's intelligence networks revealed that several alien species were secretly negotiating surrender terms, even though humanity had not declared war on them. They were terrified that humans would decide they were also responsible for the genocide. The Tarathi ambassador sent a private message to Admiral Burke. The Tarathi people had no choice but to vote with the Crethans. We were afraid they would attack us if we opposed them. Please understand that we never wanted humans to die. Burke's response was cold and direct. Fear is not an excuse for abandoning justice. You voted to let genocide go unpunished. That makes you complicit. Within 6 months, the Crethan Empire had lost 60% of its military capability. Their space fleet was reduced from 300 ships to fewer than 100. Their colonies were intact and their civilians were unharmed, but their ability to threaten other species had been completely destroyed. The turning point came when War Master Thakzul himself was captured during a raid on a secret command bunker. Human special forces stormed the facility and found the alien leader cowering in a reinforced chamber. Captain Morrison was present when Thakzul was brought aboard the Liberty. The massive alien who had once boasted about killing humans now seemed small and broken. You cannot do this, Thakzul said in heavily accented human language. The other species will unite against you. You are making enemies of the entire galaxy. Jake looked at the creature who had ordered the death of 4 billion innocent people. The other species already showed us what their friendship is worth. They chose to protect you instead of seeking justice for our dead. Now they can live with the consequences. The war was not ending with victory parades or peace treaties. It was ending with understanding. The galaxy was learning that humanity's patience had limits, and that crossing those limits came with a terrible price. News of Thakzul's capture spread quickly through alien communication networks. The being who had seemed untouchable was now a prisoner of the species he had tried to exterminate. For the first time since the attacks began, some alien leaders began to wonder if they had chosen the wrong side. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a quiet conversation in a small room on a neutral space station. War Master Thakzul, once the supreme military leader of the Crethan Empire, sat across from Admiral Helen Burke. His forearms were restrained, and his dark metallic skin showed signs of the stress he had endured during months of captivity. We underestimated you, Thakzul admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. We thought humans were weak because you sought peace. We believed your desire for cooperation made you soft. Burke studied the alien who had ordered the genocide of 4 billion humans. She felt no satisfaction in seeing him broken, only a cold sense of justice finally being served. You broke the sacred law. What did you think would happen? We thought the others would protect us, Thakzul said. We thought that our military strength and economic importance would make the council overlook your complaints. We thought numbers and power mattered more than justice. Burke leaned forward slightly. And now? Now I understand that we created our own destruction. You humans have something that we lack. You remember? You do not forgive. You do not forget. Thakzul's voice cracked. We killed your people thinking it would end the threat of human expansion. Instead, we taught you to become something far more dangerous than we ever imagined. The peace negotiations took place on Harmony Station, the same place where the Galactic Council had refused to seek justice for humanity. But this time, the chamber was very different. The old council had been dissolved. Several species had lost their right to participate after supporting genocide. Others had voluntarily stepped down in shame. Commander Roy Patterson, now promoted to admiral, sat at the head of the new council table. Next to him was Ambassador Elena Foster, representing Earth's diplomatic corps. Captain Jake Morrison was also present, representing the military forces that had brought the Crethans to their knees. The new Galactic Covenant was very different from the old one. The sacred law remained the same. No species could deliberately exterminate another. But now there were enforcement mechanisms that had real power. The Terran Enforcement Division will patrol all inhabited systems, Admiral Burke announced to the assembled representatives. Human ships will monitor communications for signs of biological weapons development. Any species found creating genocide tools will face immediate intervention. High Merchant Zilk of the Zelani raised a trembling hand. Who gave humanity the authority to police the galaxy? What makes you different from the Crethans? Ambassador Foster answered calmly. The difference is simple. We do not target civilians. We do not commit genocide. We only act against those who violate the sacred law. If you follow that one rule, you have nothing to fear from us. Chancellor Viss of the Vylari, looking much older than he had a year ago, spoke quietly. And if we refuse to accept human authority? Admiral Patterson's response was direct. Then you can try to stop us. The Crethans had the strongest military in the galaxy, and they could not protect themselves from justice. How well do you think you would do? The room fell silent. Everyone had seen what human weapons could do. Ships that could become invisible, weapons that made matter simply disappear, and biological agents that could kill specific individuals with perfect precision. No one wanted to test humanity's resolve again. Dr. Peter Chen established the Xenocide Prevention Institute on Earth's moon. Its sensors constantly monitored space communications, looking for any signs of biological weapons research. The technology that had nearly destroyed humanity now served to protect all sapient life in the galaxy. We learned from our enemies, Chen explained to a gathering of scientists from various species. The Crethans taught us how to detect genocide weapons. Now we can identify them before they are used. Agent Carol Stevens, no longer working undercover, became the director of the Human Intelligence Network. Her job was to maintain watch over potentially dangerous governments and military leaders. The same spy networks that had helped destroy the Crethans now served as an early warning system. Captain Morrison, now an admiral himself, commanded the first patrol fleet of the Terran Enforcement Division. His ship, still called the Liberty, led a squadron of 12 vessels on a tour of former Crethan territories. Our job is not to conquer, he told his crew during their first mission briefing. Our job is to make sure that what happened to our colonies never happens to anyone else. The galaxy learned to live with humanity's new role as enforcers of the sacred law. Trade resumed. Though the economic damage from the war took years to repair, diplomatic relations slowly normalized. Though they were never quite the same as before, the Crethans themselves became a different species. Their military was reduced to a small defense force, strictly monitored by human observers. Their government was restructured to prevent any single leader from having the power to order genocide. Many young Crethans grew up learning about the terrible mistake their species had made and the price they had paid for it. War Master Thak-Zul spent the rest of his life in prison on a human colony world. He was not tortured or abused. He was simply kept alive to serve as a reminder of what happened to those who committed genocide. Sometimes young human students would visit to ask him questions about the war. Why did you do it? One child asked during such a visit. Thak-Zul thought for a long time before answering. Because we were afraid of you. We saw how quickly humans were spreading across the galaxy, and we thought you would eventually threaten us, so we tried to eliminate the threat. But we were not threatening you, the child said. No, you were not. But fear makes people do terrible things. We let our fear turn us into monsters. On New Terra, humanity built a memorial to the 4 billion people who had died in the Crethan attacks. The memorial was simple, a black wall with names carved into its surface. But at the base of the wall was an inscription that visitors from across the galaxy came to read. 4 billion voices silenced, but not forgotten. They broke the only law of the stars. Humanity made them pay in blood. Let this stand as a reminder. Justice delayed is not justice denied. Ambassador Foster often brought visiting alien diplomats to see the memorial. This is why we patrol your space, she would tell them. This is why we watch for signs of genocide weapons. This is why we will never again trust others to enforce the sacred law. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military might. It was their unwillingness to accept that evil should go unpunished. They had been tested in the fires of genocide and emerged not as conquerors, but as the guardians of galactic civilization. Years passed, and peace returned to the stars. Children grew up on colonies that had been rebuilt. Trade flourished under the protection of human patrol fleets. The sacred law was respected not because everyone agreed with it, but because everyone knew that humans would enforce it. And in the dark spaces between the stars, where human ships moved silently through the void, a simple message was broadcast on all frequencies: never again.